For Afghanistan, we left in 2007. I want to say sometimes at the end of January, early February. We ended up, the first place we ended up was in Bruin. There was a little fire base called Bruin, and it was a real shithole. We had this theory. There was a 5-ton there. None of the Humvees really worked. The 5-ton didn't work. We had this theory that the 5-ton had broken down, or the vehicles, the convoy failed there, and they just put the HESCOs around it and said, okay, well, we're just gonna, circle the wagons, and then they were just moving people in and out of that place with air. But that's where we ended up. I want to say we ripped out 10th Mountain, or I can't remember if it was 10th Mountain or 173rd. 173rd might have been adjacent to us up north, so it might have been 10th Mountain we ripped out, and it was like real quick. We showed up one day. Actually, I think we showed up and they got on the same birds and basically slapped us on the way out. I was like, your problem now, So no no left seat, right seat. It was basically, they might have had like one or two dudes stayed behind at the platoon leadership level just to talk to the platoon sergeants and the LT. But yeah, it was you guys are here, we're out of here. We realized why they were so quick to get out of there. It snows in most of Afghanistan for better part of like 5 months, between like November to a good portion of April. It's white most of it, right? It was cold. So this place had like tents, cots, the heater, the diesel heaters didn't work. There was like no guard towers. It was just literally, we had the gate, and the one of the tower was a Humvee was parked. I don't know if the Humvee worked or not. It was parked next to a HESCO, and you were in the turret. Actually, 3 of the towers were like that. One of them was there was a berm, like a HESCO berm where you stood on, and it had like a little camo net over it. But yeah, that place was miserable. We tried to like do some kind of improvement. The water, it was literally just a HESCO filled with like muddied bottles that were frozen, and you would take like 3 or 4 bottles and throw them in your sleeping bag in the night when you slept, just so you can thaw them out, and that was the water you drink the next day. Yeah, Bruin was an interesting place. I mean, a lot of like burn pit stuff right next to where we were sleeping, a little a trash pile that we were burning. We had these HESCO. So at one point, I imagine they had a local, like they hired a local to bring in like a backhoe or something to fill the HESCOs. But these morons, what they did, and if it was anybody from 10th Mountain and they're listening to this, I apologize, but these morons took the dirt right in front of the HESCO and poured it right in. In theory, yeah, now you have a moat, but in practice, now you have a weak structure, like a foundation right next to it. And so we were, and they were only like kind of half filled. So we were like, okay, well, we got to fill them up more. And we spent like days, like e-tools, bucket carried this mud, slush, snow thing into the HESCO. And we spent like, if you weren't on any kind of patrol or in the tower or on any kind of rest period or eating, you were, it was like area beautification. You were improving the security. We ended up actually building a range. First thing we did was we built a range so we can practice, like kind of zero things out, do like shooting before we can go to a patrol. And then we were filling these HESCOs up I remember the main wall we were working on, there was like this storm, right? And it was cold, and windy. It was miserable already, and I guess at some point in the middle of the night, the entire wall, we're talking like maybe like 50 meters of this section of the wall just fell over right into that moat that was dug up to put that, like it just fell over. And I don't know if it was Casey Cromer or James Nolan. It was one of the first squad guys that got out of the tower. Like, we all heard it, like, right? We knew, and we thought it was like, either like there was all kind of like flare activity that was going on. We heard it, we knew, but most of us kind of like rolled over. It's like, okay, well, if I'm not feeling anything, I'm going, like, if something's happening and they need me, they'll wake me up. But one of those guys got off the shift and they walked by the wall and they were just like, oh shit, I gotta go tell everybody about this, right? So they wake us like, like you're tired, you have like, it's like the wall, what? And you just gotta come see. It's like you're PTs, you got your flip flops on, and it's freaking cold, and you're looking at this wall, and you're like, well, I'll be, and that's like just like that demoralization. And it's like we always joke, it's like a lot of monsters were made that morning because like we just it's like, you gotta be shitting me.